the weekend.
Okay, so I'm trying to think back to winter testing. Ferrari had the best car in winter testing, didn't they? Everyone was raving about the Ferrari after winter testing. And not the, Mercedes is gonna have an awful weekend, guys. What is going on, guys? It is JJ here, back with a new video. I do apologize, my voice is still somewhat slightly gone. We are trying slowly to recover it. But it is race week. Once again, we are back with another F1 race week. We will be streaming. I'm not sure if we'll be streaming qualifying. I think it's a 7-hour time difference for me for this week. So stay tuned on the streaming. We might stream qualifying. The Grand Prix might be a little rough. We'll figure it out. Honestly, I think if we do, it's gonna be a blast either way. The time difference isn't the roughest part because normally the race starts at 5:30, 6:30 your guys' time, which is in the early afternoon for me. Makes it sort of easy before anything goes on my weekend or I go out and do anything. But first, we're gonna take a look at the Barcelona Grand Prix from a track perspective. Now, instead of doing a circuit guide like I normally do, people sent me these videos for the Barcelona Grand Prix, and Chain Bear, I guess already made a video ragging on it, which you guys are gonna hate the title of my video that I already have planned, but I promise I'm keeping an open mind. I'm trying to be extremely optimistic when it comes to learning about the Barcelona GP. I knew a little bit about it during testing, but yeah, we're gonna get into why they think the Spanish Grand Prix is boring. Let's get into the video. As well, guys, you can find the original video obviously down in the description below.
I think it's no secret the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalonia is met with apprehension each year, as races there don't tend to produce exciting races very reliably, shall we say.
I love how he just kind of gets straight to the point, oh my goodness, my voice really does hurt. I'm going to avoid talking too much then. Well, maybe we'll stop here and there, but he kind of does just get straight to the point.
Let's have a little look at some of the things that contribute to Barcelona track's slight dearth of excitement. Firstly, Barcelona is the main testing track for all Formula 1 teams.
Yeah, that's a good thing, isn't it?
Such restricted testing, all of the proper on-track pre-season preparation takes place over 8 full days at Barcelona. This ends up with each team probably doing 800 to 1,000 laps of the circuit each before the season even properly begins.
Great thing, right?
The temperature is a lot lower in winter testing than they'll find once they get to the actual Spanish Grand Prix event. One thing is clear, the teams gather a huge amount of data on the track and will have more knowledge about how to approach this race than any other. There have been race weekends in the past where Friday practice has been disrupted due to bad weather and the teams have been unable to gather information about the track like they normally would through free practice. Situations like this have forced them to fudge their race preparation program somewhat and try and do the best they can in that short practice session on the Saturday morning before the car setups are locked down for qualifying. As a consequence, qualifying and the race following a disrupted Friday have tended to be a little bit more chaotic, a little more seat of the pants and somewhat less predictable, to the extent that there have been long murmurings of significantly chopping down free practice to limit the team's knowledge going into competitive sessions. With winter testing at Barcelona though, well, that's quite the opposite. The teams go in with so much data that, barring disruptive weather events like rain, wind or super hot weather, almost nobody will be particularly surprised about their own running through the weekend.
Okay, so I'm trying to think back to winter testing. Ferrari had the best car in winter testing, didn't they? Everyone was raving about the Ferrari after winter testing. And not the, Mercedes is gonna have an awful weekend, guys. We might have to bet on one of either Lewis Hamilton or George Russell to finish outside of the top 10.
Is that teams aren't able to mix it up through canniness or cunning. Everyone is bringing their A game to Spain. So then the debate becomes, should we be testing at tracks that we go racing at? Particularly, should we do so much testing at tracks like Barcelona? I'd argue no, but then we have scenarios like Abu Dhabi where they all test immediately after the race because it's super cheap as everyone is already there. So there's a trade-off there in that thinking. Okay, so that's problem one. Too much data from too much testing. Moving winter testing to some non-championship track like Jerez might help with this a little. So now let's look at the nature of the track itself, which is an interesting...
Yeah, this is my track guide portion.
Hungary, where everything is too slow and narrow to overtake with ease, and it's not particularly dirty or without a decent straight, but it comes down to the character of the track. Part of the reason it's so good for testing is it has a nice mixture of high-speed corners, mid-speed corners and low-speed corners, and it does have those straights with significant braking points at the end. So it's got a little bit of everything really when looking to explore the balance, traction, speed.
Is that not what you want in a track? You guys would want a track that has everything the sport has to offer, right? It gets the most complete car would win.
But the number and position of the mid to high speed corners are really what caused a lot of the problems, because with such a huge pit straight, you'd think it would be a little easier to get fighting with the car ahead. So let's go back to an old classic bugbear, driving in the dirty air of the car ahead. As we know, the aerodynamic parts of the Formula 1 cars throw all the air away from the bodywork with huge amounts of energy. The chassis manipulates the air and sends it spinning and soaring in all directions. And for more details on this, you can watch videos on aerodynamics and vortices.
Yeah, I don't want to do that at all.
The car behind, because the leading car has got rid of all the air for you. You don't have to waste as much energy pushing through it yourself. And at F1 speeds, air can feel thick like water. It drags you back a lot. Now the thing about mid and high speed corners, particularly these long ones like at Barcelona, they're aero limited. Now this essentially means your ability to generate downforce is what limits your speed through the corner. If you've got a good chassis, good setup and a nice clean air in front of you, you can pelt it through the corner pretty fast. If your wings are inefficient or you happen to be in the wake of a car ahead, your ability to create downforce is reduced because that leading car has pushed all the air away. Air you need to work the wings and bodywork into generating downforce. It was said a couple of times this week
This
the wake of
is so in-depth and over my head that it almost becomes funny. You're talking about the Spanish GP being born. That's what I'm saying. They're insanely informative. But Jesus, my brain is racked.
The car 5 seconds behind the car in front will start to feel the reduced aero effects of sitting in its wake. Now it's
really
closer to 3 to 4 seconds, but that's still pretty significant. When a car is as close as 1 second to the car ahead in Spain, they lose about 6% downforce. This rises to about 12% if they're lucky enough to get within half a second. So you can see why.
Well, then that's when DRS would come into play, right? That's when it would try to fix it.
Your own downforce takes a hit, particularly at the front wing, the first part of your car to work in the air. Reduced front-end downforce results in understeer, where the front of the car can't bite, can't grip as effectively as it should. This means the front starts to drift wide as the car turns in and the driver needs to slow down or risk sailing off outside the corner. So the result is the following car has to take these corners slower than the car ahead, losing time and falling behind. Now the big meaty main straight at Barcelona unfortunately has this aero-limited high-speed corner leading onto it, so it's very hard to follow the car ahead closely enough to be able to chase them down the pit straight. You're on the back foot before you can even think about attacking. It's similar down the other DRS zone on the back straight. You have to plough through this fast chicane and this fairly flat-out right-hander Campser before you get to it, so it's hard to keep up with your rival. Now, they have tried to fix some of Barcelona's track problems. La Caixa and Europe Car were changed because those parts of the track were getting a little bit too fast for the available runoff. And at La Caixa in particular, they transformed it into something a little more overtaking. See, until these two changes, Barcelona didn't really have a point where the cars hit a hardcore braking point that turned into a tight corner and a traction zone. If you have a heavy braking zone, you can try and get alongside the car ahead by being defter on the brakes. You can then try and position yourself for the launch out of the corner and outgun them up the track. But Barcelona has a lot of sweeping corners. While turn 1, for example, is preceded by a somewhat heavy braking, it's still a fast turn and you don't get the full stop-start in momentum that opens up overtaking opportunities. So there end up being very few lines through turns 1 and 2 as cars need to cling on through the speedy corners, and they end up drifting into each other quite frequently if they end up vaguely side by side. See the two Hasses or Norris and Stroll during the race. So
he has his receipts. He's got the receipts for it all.
Into high-speed corners, it's easy to see how these races can become a little processional. With Barcelona looking on shaky ground for renewal, perhaps the problem will solve itself. But even if the F1 circus travels elsewhere, we must be careful to learn from the tough races at Barcelona and think about doing things differently. Max Verstappen has already raised concerns that the Zandvoort circuit looking to replace Barcelona is not really suitable for close racing in F1. At least not in its current form.
Okay, I actually really like that because A, I got a circuit guide, B, I'm learning more about the Barcelona track, and C, I'm learning why people don't like it. It's because there's I'm going to consider this as there's just way too much data and there's not enough action. But we gotta watch now some Spanish GPs to maybe see that action or see what that action looks like. So let me know which of the Barcelona Grand Prix or which of the Spanish Grand Prix is your guys' favorite in the comments below. We'll be sure to get to those during this week, and then definitely take a look at Nico Rosberg's video, and then maybe try to tinker on it with an F1 mobile game. Who knows? But yeah, thank you so much for watching. and peace.